Dear students, my name is Jordan Simeonov and I would like to present a topic called Warfare Use of Pesticides, Toxicity of Agent Orange. The first documented intentions to use the toxic potentials of certain pesticides in military operations considered efforts to develop herbicides or growth regulators that mimic the effect of plant hormones and to implement them as a tactic in war to destroy enemy crops. Agent Orange contains two of these compounds, 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T, and works by provoking plants into frantic growth before they wither and die. During the Vietnam War, Agent Orange and other herbicides were sprayed in great amounts to kill crops, deprive Viet Cong and North Vietnamese troops of food, and to remove the vegetation cover used for concealment. Operation Range Hand involved about more than 8,000 spraying missions and sprayed about 72 million liters of herbicides, and 11 million of which consisted of Agent Orange. The 2,4,5-T used to produce Agent Orange was unintentionally contaminated during the manufacturing process with small amounts of extremely toxic dioxin compound, 2,3,7,8-TCDD. Lists of the diseases and medical conditions attributed to the exposure to Agent Orange and also the links to different types of cancer are presented. This is the title page for presentations of the Erasmus project TOXOR, Learning Toxicology through Open Educational Resources. And now let us go back on the topic and include some more details. Historically, the first documented intentions to use the toxic potentials of certain pesticides in military operations considered the efforts of US and Britain collaboration during the late 1940s and 50s to work on the development of herbicides with applications in warfare. In the 1930s, British research and testing paved the way for the discovery of chemical plant growth regulators that mimic the effect of plant hormones and their implementation as a tactic in war to destroy enemy crops. Agent Orange contains two of these compounds and works by provoking plants into frantic growth before they wither and die. Oil and water-based formulations of herbicides were used in Vietnam and several other places during war times. The herbicides were stored and shipped in 208-liter barrels and named after the color band painted in each barrel. These herbicides were produced for US military from companies such as Dow Chemical, Monsanto, and several others. During the Vietnam War, Agent Orange and other herbicides were sprayed over southern Vietnam forests to kill crops and deprive Viet Cong and North Vietnamese troops of food and to remove the vegetation cover used for concealment. These cleared large forest areas hiding sanctuaries and bases, forcing Viet Cong and North Vietnamese troops to move or risk discovery and attack. Operation called Range Hand involved about nearly 9,000 spraying missions and sprayed about 72 million liters of herbicides, and 11 million of which consisted of Agent Orange. Here's a picture of a little boy in the defoliated forest. Agent Orange is an oil-based herbicide that was used to target broadleaf plants and woody shrubs and trees, including mangroves. The 2,4,5-T used to produce Agent Orange was unintentionally contaminated during the manufacturing process with small amounts of extremely toxic dioxin compound. The toxic equivalency factor, or TEF, has been described as perhaps the most toxic molecule ever synthesized by man. Concentrations about 1 part per billion, or ppb, result in premature death from more acute causes. Concentrations of 50 ppb produce rapid signs of acute toxicity and early death. Lower concentration of TCDD seem to produce the same effects as higher concentrations, but merely take longer to do so. The third president of Ukraine, Viktor Yushchenko, was the leader of the Orange Revolution for country independence. Following an assassination attempt in late 2004, during his election campaign, Mr. Yushchenko was confirmed to have ingested hazardous amounts of TCDD. At present, the unused Agent Orange is stored on different abandoned locations as the huge one on Johnston Island in South Pacific. So let us consider the adverse human health effects of Agent Orange. Millions of Vietnamese people were exposed to Agent Orange during the war. The Vietnamese Red Cross says local studies have shown that as many as 1 million people now have disabilities or other health problems associated with Agent Orange, approximately 100,000 of them being disabled children. Every year, particularly in the areas heavily sprayed with Agent Orange, thousands of children are born with illnesses and birth deformities, some of them very severe, while thousands of adults develop cancer or other health problems. Officials from the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, VA, estimate that about 2.6 million military personnel who served in Vietnam were affected by Agent Orange. Since 1994, the US government has directed the Institute of Medicine to issue reports every 2 years on the health effects, both cancerous and non-cancerous, of Agent Orange and similar herbicides, titled Veterans and Agent Orange. At the end of the presentation is the closing page of the Toxicity project, where you can see the logos of the participating educational institutions from 7 European countries.